there is, as you may have noticed, a fair bit happening at Chelsea.
And then Palmer for the hat-trick, lifts it over him, and in! Opportunist, but exquisite, without doubt. Chelsea's best acquisition of the billion-dollar splurge. It's Cole Palmer.
5 wins in a row ends the season on a high for the Blues, who secure European football for next season.
What is now a squad of 53 players. It's like an NFL roster.
You know, you spend over £1 billion and you haven't got a world-class striker and you haven't got a world-class goalkeeper. And
Chelsea start to bring on substitutes, and I'm looking at him saying, who's this?
As he breaks towards the edge of the penalty area, and he goes all the way, and Joao Felix scores an excellent individual goal for Chelsea.
And Enzo Fernandez, who, let's not forget what's been going on with him this summer, he's wearing the armband.
I do not have a clue about Chelsea. We just don't know what we're going to get.
Recruitment policy, their co-sporting directors who seem to be playing championship manager.
Enzo Maresca defending his squad size at Stamford Bridge yesterday, insisting the team's not in disarray despite signing Joao Felix. The club have made it clear that Raheem Sterling and Ben Chilwell are both for sale. Maresca was asked about the size of his squad yesterday and doesn't think it's an issue.
It's already the first 11 we want. It's already the squad we want. But the first 11 we had against City is not going to be always the same 11 all season. But the squad is the squad that I want in this moment. As I said again, I repeat again, I'm not working with 42 players. That is something that from outside, I'm working in this moment with 21 players. Today's session is with 20 players. Yesterday's session was with 21. So it's the other 15 or 20, they're training apart. And in the USA, we are 26 or 27 players. So it's not if they are Chelsea player, 42, 43, yes, for sure. But they are not working with me every day. I don't see them. So it's not a mess like looks from outside. Absolutely not.
The other 15 or 20 are training apart, but it's not a mess.
What do you reckon the atmosphere was like with the other 15 and 20 who were training apart?
Goodness knows.
It won't be easy. For the coaches who are having to, because obviously other coaches have to take them on board and look after them and make sure they're involved with some of the younger lads at the club as well.
And they'll be talking to each other.
Oh, absolutely. I can't imagine there has to be cliques at football clubs. That always happens. When players get left out, they get very unhappy. That's quite normal. But you always get cliques at football club, Jeff.
Yeah. Look, it's very difficult to understand what is going on at Chelsea. Let's see if we can clear the murky waters a little. Joining us now for more on this is football finance expert Kieran Maguire. Morning, Kieran.
Kieran.
Morning, guys. How are we doing?
Yeah, good.
Yeah, very good. Look, Gary Neville said on Monday Night Football, he said, what do those at Chelsea know that nobody else in football appears to know? I mean, can you explain how you see what's unfolding at Chelsea?
Well, what Chelsea are very good at doing is selling things, and that includes players. If you take a look at over the course of the last decade, Chelsea have made player sale profits of £800 million. That's 4 times the amount of Manchester United. That's twice the amount of Arsenal and Spurs and so on. So that's one thing that they're very good at. And the other thing is that because Clearlake and Todd Boehly inherited Chelsea from Roman Abramovich with no debt, it's allowed them to sell car parks, hotels, and now the women's team, and that's bringing in hundreds of millions, which allows them to go and spend in the transfer market. So this extra money coming in, especially via the academy route, which is pure profit, has allowed them to spend.
So, Kieran, where does this end, though? Are we going to get to a period when you're going to go, well, next summer Chelsea definitely can't do this?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Tony, that there has to be an end point because they've only got one hotel. They've only got so many car parks that they can sell to themselves. And now that they've sold the women's team, that particular avenue is no longer open to them. It's a bit like if you've got a house and you sell off your garden and you sell off your garage and eventually there's nothing left. So it's a short-term policy. We'll have to see whether it's successful or not. And they've got a £400 million wage bill as well, which I think is something which they really do need to address fairly quickly, especially as they're not in the Champions League for a few seasons.
I mean, if you look at the figures on transfer market, Kieran, that at the moment, in this season, they spent £241 million, €241 million, but brought in 145. So there's a deficit of €96 million. Last season, they reckon it was a deficit of 186 million, and the season before that, 562 million. Is the fact that they sell hotels and car parks and so on, is that saving them from a PSR punishment at the moment?
Yes, but without doubt, had they not sold the hotels and the car park in 22-23, they would have been subject to a PSR breach. That brought in around about £76 million. It looks as if they've done something very similar towards the end of the last financial year, which is the 30th of June 2024, because the women's team was sold on the 28th of June. So these are sort of get out of jail free cards, but you can't keep playing them forever. And that they also are very, very good at selling their academy players. If you look at Mason Mount and Conor Gallagher, that's pure profit. They bought players in on the long-term contracts before the Premier League and UEFA changed the amortisation rules, so that gives them another boost. It does also mean that if the players are unhappy, potentially you're stuck with them for 7 or 8 years.
Yeah. And I was going to add to that, Kieran, because at the last count, I worked out that there are 22 players with 6 years plus left on their contracts. Now, that's a huge commitment further down the line. That, you talked about their revenue, and yes, they're generating this, but that amount of players with that long contracts is a huge commitment for a football club to fulfil.
That's it's like trying to sail a boat with an anchor down. It's dragging you behind, and it slows the progress of the club because it's not in a position to go and buy new players on a continued basis once we get to say 26 and 27. So very, very high risk policy from Todd Boehly and the rest of the owners, and we can only wait and see whether or not that's going to be successful or not.
I mean, from other clubs' point of view, surely they're going to be looking at Chelsea and thinking, Raheem Sterling, Ben Chilwell, Chalobah. Chelsea are desperate to sell. Are they going to get the proper market value for those players?
Well, from a buying club's point of view, you always look at it from a negotiation strength perspective. They know that the players aren't going to be in a Chelsea shirt this season. They also know that those players, especially the likes of Raheem Sterling, are on very lucrative contracts. So that means that the asking price in terms of a transfer, if Chelsea genuinely want to sell those players, has to be tailored down. Or alternatively, Chelsea will have to give the players a significant payoff to persuade them to leave.
Just quickly, Kieran, they're still talking about Victor Osimhen coming in, who would cost over £100 million. I mean, even if Lukaku is used as a make-weight going the other way, how can they do that?
Well, they'll put him on a 5-year contract. They will try to sign him on significantly lower wages to Romelu Lukaku and budget that way. Remember, they got £60 million of profit from Mason Mount last year. They'll have a £35 million profit from the sale of Conor Gallagher. They've got the sale of Lewis Hall as well, which brings in another 20 to 25 million. This is where Chelsea's strength has been, so that they can still do it, but you can understand other clubs being pretty unhappy with the loopholes that they've used.
Just one final question, Kieran, from me is that, is it inevitable that Chelsea are going to have a change of direction if they continually fail to get Champions League football?
Yes, I mean, Champions League, especially now that we've started the Swiss-style model this season, could be worth somewhere in the region of 150 to 200 million pounds for a club that gets to the final stages. The Europa League is probably worth around about 20% of that. So getting into the top 4 is becoming increasingly essential for those clubs who want to compete in the transfer market at the top level. You can get away with it for a couple of years, but they can't carry on forever.
talkSPORT Breakfast, waking you up Monday to Friday morning from 6 a.m. on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.